The St. Louis Area Food Bank presents the Missouri TEFAP Annual Compliance Course. Welcome. The Emergency Food Assistance Program, TEFAP, supplements nutritional need by providing USDA food to low-income and food-insecure neighbors. TEFAP is a federal program, but TEFAP administration varies from state to state. The Missouri Department of Social Services, DSS, and the Illinois Department of Human Services, IDHS, run things differently. That's why we offer two TEFAP courses. If you serve TEFAP food in Missouri, you're in the right course. We're glad you're here. DSS requires Missouri food banks to provide ongoing training to their TEFAP distribution partners. We agree. We think everything from serving neighbors to site inspections is easier when people know what to do. As part of ongoing training, we recommend that staff and volunteers who take responsibility for interacting with neighbors, preparing for site inspections, and completing TEFAP paperwork complete this course during their onboarding, then once a year after that. The St. Louis Area Food Bank requires at least one person at each Missouri TEFAP site to complete this course each year. Please share the training with others. Everyone is welcome. The USDA requires anyone who directly interacts with TEFAP neighbors to take a civil rights course once a year. The St. Louis Area Food Bank provides this course online under partner education.
You may wonder, why are we required to take these courses every year? The USDA's intention is to remind us of why we take extra care when serving TEFAP food. We want to provide equitable access to safe food for neighbors in need. No matter where a neighbor is in Missouri, they should find we all apply the same rules in a consistent way.
To receive TEFAP food, each site signs a contract that gives the St. Louis Area Food Bank, DSS, and USDA inspectors the authority to conduct inspections. Site inspectors will have identification to show they are who they say they are. No additional paperwork or permission is needed to give them access. Please let all staff and volunteers know it's okay to let them in.
Food Bank. Partner relationship coordinators visit network partners routinely. Their goal is to provide program support. Health Department. The Health Department is mainly concerned with food safety in the community. They check that local codes are satisfied. State. DSS reviews program compliance at Missouri sites. Federal. The USDA reviews program compliance all across the nation.
Partners are unlikely to host a USDA or a Missouri DSS site inspector often. It's possible for a government site inspector to arrive and find that no one on site that day has prior experience with government site inspections. Don't be surprised, be ready. One of the main ways the St. Louis Area Food Bank prepares you to be ready is through regular site visits. Every other year, your partner relationship coordinator will come see how things are going. They'll run through a checklist to review USDA program standards that we agreed to in our annual TEFAP contract. If they spot barriers in the way, they can help work out solutions.
Government inspectors do not have to announce their visits ahead of time. The USDA made unannounced visits to some Illinois partners in 2024. DSS site visits may be announced or unannounced.
DSS visits TEFAP sites routinely, but they don't necessarily visit the same sites every year. State inspectors want to know what our neighbors experience. They want to come during hours when neighbors are being served. Site visits give inspectors an opportunity to verify hours of operation. We'll explain what that means a little later on. We've learned that we don't all interpret written policy in the same way. We want you to be ready for how DSS and the USDA will apply the rules during inspections. The DSS TEFAP Policy and Procedure Manual describes the TEFAP rules and documents we use. The TEFAP contract the St. Louis Area Food Bank and TEFAP partners signed together says we'll remain in compliance with the rules in the manual. During this course, we'll review program standards. We'll explain program expectations for serving neighbors, neighbor eligibility, and food safety and storage. Then we'll link you to the posters, forms, and the manual you'll need. As always, your questions are welcome. Let's get started. Serving neighbors. We believe that every person deserves nutritious food that supports a full life for them and their families. As generous as local donors are, the need often is greater than the supply. Through TEFAP funding, the USDA purchases food and makes it available to Feeding America distributors like the St. Louis Area Food Bank. TEFAP helps fill the gap between local donations and the need in our community. Whether you're dishing up hot food at mealtimes or packing groceries to take home, some TEFAP rules for serving neighbors are the same. Once a year, DSS determines how much TEFAP product will go to each county. They treat St. Louis City as if it were its own county. Supply for each month is like a pie, cut into 14 pieces to share with each county in the St. Louis Area Food Bank's network. Counties with a higher population of neighbors in need get proportionately more product, or a larger piece of the pie. TEFAP allocation size grows and shrinks depending on supply and changes to funding. Local demand also grows and shrinks. At times, the TEFAP pie is small, although our fair share will always stay in proportion with the other counties. Other times, the TEFAP pie is larger than demand. Another way the quantity of TEFAP food reaching you may be affected is by other TEFAP partners within the St. Louis Area Food Bank network. The supply for each county will be shared out among all the TEFAP partners in that county. If you're the only TEFAP partner in your county, the entire county supply will come to you. If a new TEFAP partner is added to your county, the TEFAP supply for your county will be divided between your locations. Because supply and demand are not consistent, the USDA says to treat TEFAP as a supplemental source, not a primary one. That's why we agree in our TEFAP contract that we won't reduce or replace food we acquire through other sources.
Once the month's supply has arrived at the food bank, partners get an email listing the product and quantity they will be getting that month. This is a big opportunity to balance the challenges of supply and demand. If your location needs more or fewer TEFAP products, send a reply email. The St. Louis Area Food Bank will accept your adjustments up to 2 business days before your scheduled pickup or delivery day. Not getting your monthly TEFAP order emails? Common problems include email messages going into spam or junk folders, so be sure to check those. Other times the email address on file with the food bank needs to be updated with your newest contact information. Please reach out to your partner relationship coordinator right away. As you can tell, working with TEFAP orders is time-sensitive. Pickup and delivery are also time-sensitive.
Pickup at the St. Louis Area Food Bank is standard for TEFAP partners with locations in St. Louis City and St. Louis County. Pickup works best when partners have a standing day, such as the second Tuesday of the month, and collect their entire TEFAP order in one trip. Schedule adjustments may be made in advance, so please reach out quickly if needed.
Caring Basket is a fictional partner based on the St. Louis Area Food Bank's experienced TEFAP partners.
Pickup or delivery, the food bank is willing to work with you to resolve logistical challenges. Free once-a-month TEFAP delivery is standard for partners with locations outside St. Louis City and St. Louis County. Like pickup, delivery works best when partners are fully prepared to receive their TEFAP order as scheduled. To make adjustments, please reach out in advance. For more specifics about free USDA and fee-based delivery options, contact your partner relationship coordinator.
Invoices document the handoff from the food bank to partners. Count the TEFAP items as you accept them. They should match the quantity printed on the invoice. The St. Louis Area Food Bank works hard to ensure all product reaches partners in good condition, but USDA product has to meet the highest standards. The invoice transfers responsibility for food condition from the food bank to partners. Before parting ways, check, does the product look okay? Contact the food bank immediately if you suspect missing food, pest activity, or product damage at receiving. Accept the product after you've resolved any issues. Record the temperature of TEFAP product directly on the invoice when the product arrives at your location, whether you're picking up product or the food bank delivers it to you. Then, store the invoice as TEFAP documentation.
The USDA regulates hours of operation. This phrase causes some confusion because in the food business, operations include activities like receiving, restocking, or preparing food. The USDA's hours of operation refer to a consistent, publicized schedule for serving neighbors, like dining hours at a restaurant or hours a grocery store is open to customers. TEFAP neighbors are served on a first-come, first-served basis. To maintain access for all, TEFAP partners are required to be open to neighbors at least once per week. Reliable information is critical for our neighbors. Site inspectors want to see that your site's open days and hours are the same in each place they're posted, such as on a sign on the outside of your building, required, and online at the St. Louis Area Food Bank's website, Vivery.
Like grocery stores and restaurants, TEFAP partners publicize their hours in a variety of ways. If your signage, social media, or any other communication mentions TEFAP or USDA food, be sure to include the non-discrimination statement as well. Checking and updating posted hours is a small task with a big impact. Partners who prioritize this task know it's not just compliance, it's mission critical. Your work makes a big difference. Thank you.
Online, there's an option to post phone numbers along with hours of operation. During emergency closures that impact only your part of our metro area, a phone number to other sources of help can be a lifeline. The St. Louis Area Food Bank requires 2 phone numbers on posted signs and online. Include the official phone number for the distribution site, plus a backup number neighbors can call when the site is closed. Acceptable backup numbers include the food bank's number, 211, or a cell phone number answered by site staff or volunteers. We found that 211 does a good job serving neighbors. Their resources go beyond locating emergency food to help with other needs. During emergencies such as flooding, neighbors may need several types of help all at once.
Open less than once a week. DSS wants TEFAP locations to be open at least once a week. Sometimes, in sparsely populated rural areas, this requirement becomes a burden. An exception may be possible. Please reach out to your partner relationship coordinators before reducing hours to less than once a week so they can work with you to ensure service access in your county. Holiday closures. Holidays are a predictable exception to regular operating hours. Make sure reduced holiday hours or closures are broadly communicated in advance. Emergency closures. Emergency closures occur at unpredictable times, but we predict they will happen. Think about how often we see severe weather alerts here in Missouri. Prepare ahead and plan how to communicate.
In the past, most program changes went into effect at the start of each state fiscal year, July 1st. That pattern was disrupted by COVID in 2020. The rate of change has increased since then.
For example, in September 2023, the USDA canceled the requirement for religious organizations to display the written notice to beneficiaries and provide referrals. In July 2024, the USDA reinstated the requirement, adding clarification about referrals that align more closely with existing law. DSS and the St. Louis Area Food Bank sent emails to partners to communicate this change. As a general caution, we want you to know that DSS's website resources and the food bank's training updates can fall behind. If you think you missed a message, or you wonder if a poster, form, rule, or this training is out of date, contact your partner relationship coordinator right away.
By law, TEFAP sites where religious activities like worship, instruction, or proselytizing take place must offer USDA food distribution in a separate space or at a separate time. The USDA requires these sites to provide the written notice of beneficiary rights before neighbors participate in TEFAP. The USDA requires us to use the notice in one or both of these ways: as a poster visible to all entering the TEFAP site, and as a flyer provided to neighbors at each distribution. As of 2024, DSS prints referral information directly on the notice. If a neighbor asks to be served elsewhere, please direct them to contact information at the end of the page, shown here.
When site inspectors review food storage practices, they check that systems for keeping food safe to eat are in place. They want to see logs that document routine checking for signs of pests or temperature control issues. Contact information for professional help, like a pest control company, should be readily available. New in 2024, the St. Louis Area Food Bank created a pest control log for partners. If you aren't using one already, this log may help you get started. Link to logs under Helpful Forms on the course webpage.
Whether partners collect information on paper or digitally, site inspectors expect that all documentation is stored and accessible on site. Inspectors check documents from the current year and 3 previous calendar years. To save space, it's okay to discard outdated records. If the current year is 2024, all records dated 2020 and older can go. All records dated 2021 onward should be available for review. Here's some records the St. Louis Area Food Bank looks for during site inspections: neighbor intake records and monthly report, TEFAP invoices for each month, temperature and pest control logs, copies of food safety certificates, most recent health inspection report, flyers, newsletters, or materials that mention USDA or TEFAP, and training documentation. Neighbor eligibility. DSS's eligibility rules for TEFAP food pantry partners are very different than for TEFAP partners offering meal service. Neighbor intake is done completely differently. Eligibility rules for kitchens and shelters are more restrictive than for food pantries. Monthly reporting is also different. The USDA uses the reported information they get back from us to accomplish different things. Please, if your site serves meals and offers pantry services, make sure the food is properly separated in storage and tracked as 2 programs. Thank you. Your effort has a real-world impact on decisions that benefit our neighbors. For monthly reporting, food pantries will be reporting on households served. Kitchens and shelters report meals served.
Monthly TEFAP reporting hasn't changed, so you can continue to report as you do now.
DSS considers anyone eating at a soup kitchen or shelter automatically TEFAP eligible, no questions asked.
Missouri doesn't require partners to collect any information about neighbors who arrive to eat meals. After the last meal is served in a calendar month, partners have until the 10th of the following month to submit their monthly meal count report to the St. Louis Area Food Bank.
If your site serves meals but doesn't offer pantry services, feel free to skip ahead to Food Safety and Storage, next section. The information in the rest of this section is only relevant for food pantries. Neighbor eligibility should be the same at any TEFAP pantry in Missouri. To be consistent, DSS asks us to post and explain FD 15A, Part 1, the eligibility rules, and fill in Form FD 15A, Part 2, a sign-in sheet that documents pantry certification. By law, neighbors review Part 1 before they sign Part 2 and get food. Laying the pages of Part 1 out on a counter where neighbors sign in is an easy way to post the information. It doesn't have to be up on the wall. You may want to have a laminated copy to hand around, or extra copies to give away. During sign-in, partners check that neighbors are residents of Missouri, and all household members meet the definition of low income. Part 1 explains 2 ways neighbors can meet TEFAP eligibility requirements in Missouri. Partners can help neighbors understand household eligibility quickly by asking a few questions and writing the answers in Part 2. The USDA allocates TEFAP food by county, based on the number of neighbors living there with low or no income. Eligibility rules are a general check that we're meeting the need the USDA identified. DSS encourages neighbors to only visit one TEFAP partner, located in the same county they live in. But what about a neighbor participating in the county where they work? Or choosing different pantries often because they live in their car and move around? Good news! DSS says you may serve neighbors from outside your county. TEFAP is open to unhoused neighbors and neighbors who moved to your county just seconds ago. Neighbors are entitled to TEFAP food at least once a month, so you don't have to turn away a neighbor just because they're from outside your usual service area. In fact, if it's a neighbor's first visit, we're required to serve them, no matter where they live. Ideally, partners never ask neighbors for income information. If they participate in these public assistance programs, they're automatically eligible for TEFAP. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP. Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. Public Housing Assistance, sometimes called HUD or Section 8. Consider marking all three of these programs on Part 1 with a highlighter or pen for quick reference.
First, ask neighbors if they get SNAP benefits. This is the program neighbors seeking food at a pantry are most likely to need. If neighbors are using SNAP, you'll know they've met the Missouri residence requirement we talked about. They'll also have met the Missouri TEFAP definition of low income. If they haven't heard of SNAP, ask if they have an EBT card or use food stamps. What you're looking for is household and income eligibility for Missouri, so food stamps from another state or an Illinois Link EBT card aren't quite the right fit. If it turns out your neighbors aren't familiar with SNAP or have questions about it, take a minute to explain the program.
Let Missouri neighbors know that in addition to help from TEFAP pantry partners, they can reliably access free groceries through Missouri's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. SNAP neighbors get a Missouri Electronic Benefits Transfer (EBT) card. Each month, Missouri adds money to the card and neighbors can use it to pay for EBT items at a grocery store. It won't buy soap or dog food, but it will buy cereal, milk, and most everything else you can eat at home. If neighbors are interested in SNAP, we can help them apply. Contact your partner relationship coordinator for more information. Now let's return to eligibility for TEFAP. All your neighbors' household members are going to be included in TEFAP eligibility, because all the household will benefit.
What does DSS mean by household size? DSS defines household size as the number of people who live at the same address and share their money to buy rent and food as a group, different from people who keep their finances fully separate from each other. For example, DSS excludes paying boarders and institutional residents from their definition.
Whether neighbors answer yes or no to participation in SNAP, LIHEAP, or Section 8 housing, we collect their household size information to complete documenting their eligibility in Part 2, the sign-in sheet. If their answer was yes, we're getting close to pantry certification based on Household Public Assistance Eligibility, PA. If they've certified in the past, we have one more question.
Carl works at Caring Basket Food Pantry. He greets Darnell, who often comes in to collect food for his SNAP household of 6. Carl asks, "Have you picked up any TEFAP food this month?" Darnell replies, "One time." Eligible neighbors may collect TEFAP up to 2 times within a calendar month, and perishable TEFAP foods weekly. Carl nods and enters Darnell's household size. Darnell lets Carl know his address has stayed the same since last time. We only collect and document neighbors' addresses on their first visit unless something changes. Carl enters Darnell's name and date, then certifies Darnell as approved PA.
Carl's 3-question certification process protected Darnell's personal information. If Darnell's household hadn't been covered by one of the Big 3 public assistance programs, Carl would have needed to gather a little more information. The next most secure way to certify a neighbor is through other public assistance participation.
Carl greets Kristen and Bailey, first-time neighbors who were interested in TEFAP. He points to the list of public assistance programs on Part 1. He asks Kristen, "Do you use any of these benefits?" Carl learns the WIC program benefits all of Kristen's two-member household, Kristen and her baby. They're eligible by income. He notes household size, Kristen's name, and her address because it's her first visit. Kristen's address is within Caring-Baskets County. Carl adds the date and marks approved PA on Part 2. Bailey says, "I also get WIC. Do I qualify?" Bailey arrived with Kristen because they're next-door neighbors. Bailey's household, like Kristen's, is TEFAP eligible by address with no TEFAP pickup in the past month. What Carl doesn't know yet is if Bailey's full household is income eligible. As with Kristen, Carl asks how many members Bailey has in her household. He learns that Bailey and her toddler benefit from WIC, but a friend who shares rent and meal costs with her doesn't. Do you know if your friend benefits from any of these programs? Carl points to the list in Part 1. Bailey shakes her head, no. Carl can't determine if Bailey's household is income eligible for TEFAP using public assistance programs. He needs to find another low-risk method, a non-public assistance, or an NPA method, to use instead. Is your combined monthly income below this number? Carl taps the income chart on Part 1, pointing out the monthly limit for a 3-member household. Bailey nods yes. Okay, you or your friend can get TEFAP food up to 2 times a month here, and perishables once a week. He marks approved NPA on Part 2. PA and NPA are 2 low-risk ways to describe household income eligibility. DSS wants partners to try the PA method first. Bailey gets public assistance, but the PA method didn't work to describe her entire household. Carl is correct. Use the NPA method as a backup when the PA method doesn't work. On Part 2, mark one method only to show DSS how you determined household income eligibility. DSS says partners should have a system in place to track how often neighbors participate in TEFAP. There are many ways to do this. A computerized system can track neighbors for you. Interested in going digital with your TEFAP intake? Ask the St. Louis Area Food Bank to onboard your site to Service Insights on Meal Connect. Whether you're doing a full conversion from paper to digital or simply looking to upgrade software, Service Insights on Meal Connect is available to you. It's free. Feeding America makes this possible. The food bank will provide training and launch support. Track neighbors and complete monthly reports automatically. A Missouri TEFAP partner using Service Insights said, "We love it, it's great."
You may have already noticed, DSS doesn't require TEFAP partners to verify their neighbors' incomes, identities, or residencies. In the TEFAP manual, DSS states, verification is not necessary. If partners are asking neighbors for ID for some other reason, then under civil rights law all TEFAP neighbors need to be asked, every time, no exceptions. If a neighbor says they don't have an ID or won't show one, they're still eligible for TEFAP food. DSS requires partners to accept neighbors' stated eligibility information as true. If neighbors say they aren't eligible, or if your system shows they've reached maximum TEFAP pickup within the past calendar month, mark "Denied" on the sign-in sheet. Pantry certification can't be left blank, mark PA, NPA, or denied. It's okay for neighbors to try again next time. Being denied, like being certified, only lasts for one TEFAP food distribution. The products the USDA distributes constantly change. DSS allows pantries ordering TEFAP product to make selections that will work for their neighbors. DSS also allows neighbors to refuse products they don't think they'll use. For transparency, DSS requires food pantries to post a list of the TEFAP products they have. Neighbors may take up to a limited number of each product. Pantries determine the limit by supply and household size. In storage, partners know to keep TEFAP food separate from other donations. But when TEFAP pantry products go out to the neighbors, the main rule is mix it up. Distribute TEFAP foods in combination with food from other sources. TEFAP food may not be distributed separately. DSS reminds us that TEFAP pantries may not require neighbors to get a membership or a referral from an outside agency. Also, TEFAP pantries may not charge fees. Food safety and storage. Before we begin, we want to make clear that this TEFAP course provides a basic overview of food handling and food safety. Food safety certification is a separate course. The St. Louis Area Food Bank offers ServSafe's Food Handler training for food banking, free to all volunteers and staff. Combined, the course and certification exam take about 2 hours to complete. One certified person needs to be present during TEFAP distributions to meet USDA regulations. Having many certified volunteers makes meeting this requirement easier. Some volunteers may have food safety certifications from other places. Contact the food bank to get these certifications on file for your distribution site. Site inspectors check certifications and other food safety documents, such as logs. Cleaning TEFAP sites is like cleaning commercial kitchens and restaurants. TEFAP sites must comply with state and local laws, policies, procedures, and warehousing standards. Site inspectors check to see if food containers, shelves, and floors have been wiped clean of food spills. Pests will nest in packaging, so they'll also look to see how cleanup is handled generally. Food storage equipment should be well lit and positioned for cleaning. Positioning dry storage shelves 4 or more inches away from walls makes it harder for pests to nest in corners, because nesting materials and dry spills fall to the floor. Shelving adjusted to 6 or more inches above the floor leaves room for brooms and mops to reach under shelves and keep the floor clean. Organizing TEFAP sites is like organizing a grocery store. Be sure to clearly separate non-food items from food items. In addition to food, we often distribute household items like soap and laundry detergent. Keep cleaning products on a separate rack, or at least on a lower shelf than food items. For TEFAP, we also must label and store USDA product separately from other donations. Well-organized storage is not crowded. In dry storage, food should not be stored in direct sunlight. Maintain at least 2 feet of clearance above food on the top shelf to prevent overheating. Air circulation around food in cold storage is also important to maintain the correct temperature. Refrigerators and freezers must have working thermometers. Refrigerated foods should measure 36 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Frozen foods should measure -10 to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. For each cold storage unit, post a temperature log close by. Then, set a regular schedule with volunteers and staff to check what the temperature reading is, and note it on the log. If the temperature is out of range, make sure staff and volunteers know to remove the product and get maintenance assistance. Another task easily taken care of at the same time as logging temperatures, checking that storage containers are accurately labeled with the contents and a date.
Tina accepts fresh donations. 1 bag of apples and 2 boxes of tomatoes were left in the cooler from yesterday. Tina puts away the new apples and tomatoes. Tina made a mistake. When new deliveries of food come in before shelves are completely empty, we rotate for freshness. At the end of the day, 2 bags of apples and 5 boxes of tomatoes are left. Yesterday's product is still there.
To rotate food, begin by removing yesterday's food. Then, put away today's delivery at the back of the shelf. Return yesterday's items to the shelf. Now the items that arrived in first will be the first items out to neighbors today. This rotation rule is referred to as FIFO, or first in, first out. Rotating for FIFO prevents undated food from aging in storage.
Today, Tina accepts milk with an end date of March 20th. 2 cartons of milk with an end date of March 31st are still left from yesterday. She puts today's milk in front. She wants the food that expires first, March 20th, to go out first.
Tina is correct. First expired, first out, FIFO, meets the same goal as FIFO. We don't want food to age in storage. We use FIFO and FIFO rotation methods for both cold and dry storage. When food isn't dated, such as fresh fruits and vegetables, we rotate food using the FIFO method. FIFO rotation depends on knowing the product end date. There are several types of end dates printed on products: best by, sell before, or best before dates, to name a few. For USDA food, please treat them all as expiration dates. When food is dated, the USDA expects us to discard TEFAP product after its end date. No one wants to waste food, so checking end dates and rotating food is very important. Please let the food bank know if you have a lot of food about to expire. We'll work with you to distribute it another way and prevent waste.
Phoenix is a ServSafe certified food handler who accepts local donations of bulk foods. They often repack bulk donations of potatoes and apples to make portioning and storage easier for the smaller households in their community.
Repacking means transferring bulk food with low contamination risk into other containers. As a general rule, food exempt from FDA nutrition label laws can be repacked.
Fresh produce that has not been processed, such as whole fruits and vegetables, may be repacked. Gil accepts a TEFAP allotment of frozen chicken. Each package contains 6 chicken breasts. He sees Phoenix at work and likes their idea. He begins to repackage the chicken, 2 to a container. Phoenix stops him. Gil, we can't repackage that USDA food. It's got to go out in the original packaging.
Phoenix is correct. Just like a grocery store, we're prohibited from repackaging USDA food that is sealed, labeled, and stamped with packing or end dates under federal inspection at the processor. Repackaging raw and processed foods creates contamination risk. The DSS manual and the TEFAP contract both state that repackaging food is prohibited.
Zeke receives USDA cheese. The boxes look good and are all dated best by 3 months from today, so he accepts them. He opens the first box and puts away 36 packages of cheese. He opens the second box and sees mold through the plastic. He lifts out the cheese and discovers that the plastic wasn't sealed correctly at the factory. Yuck!
Zeke just identified out-of-condition food. The date on the product is never a guarantee that food is safe to eat. TEFAP food handlers should remove unsafe or poor-quality USDA food and report it right away. The food bank wants to know. Watch for poor packaging, like bulging or rusty cans, torn bags, and leaks. Foreign material in product, such as metal or Band-Aids, and quality issues, odors and appearance. A food recall attempts to halt the distribution of unsafe food before it reaches the public. DSS monitors recalls for all Missouri TEFAP product. The USDA classifies recalls according to how dangerous they are.
Class 1, a reasonable probability that consuming the product will cause serious, adverse health consequences or death. Class 2, a remote probability that consuming the product will cause adverse health consequences. Class 3, consuming the product will not cause adverse health consequences.
In the event of a food recall, DSS will inform all Missouri food banks. The St. Louis Area Food Bank will contact their TEFAP partners to explain the recall danger level and any follow-up actions we'll need to take. Next steps.
The St. Louis area food bank partners distributed nearly 5 million pounds of TEFAP product to Missouri neighbors in fiscal year 23. That's 4,969,781 pounds, to be exact. Thank you.
Congratulations! You've completed your annual Missouri TEFAP training. Please follow the link provided to document your course completion. You'll also find links to the TEFAP distribution site manual, the civil rights course, and contact information. Get your questions answered. Thank you for partnering with us.
This course was brought to you by an AmeriCorps service member.